It was shortly after 12 p.m. on Tuesday, February 14th, 2017. Libby German and Abby Williams have been missing for 21 hours now. A search has been underway for approximately 3 hours at the Monon High Bridge Trail in Delphi, Indiana. 60-plus locals were split into 20 teams of 3. Each fire team made up of 1 police fire rescue agent and 2 civilians. Both of the families walk with search groups. Some of the groups are split up, some walk together. Carroll County Sheriff Tobe Lesenby and the Indiana State Police have requested search dogs from Illinois. Within the woods, Pat Brown, a local and friend of the family, found several boot prints near a shallow area of Deer Creek. As he is scanning the ground, he catches subtle movement across the water. On the other side, he witnesses 2 white-tailed deer who were grazing next to a cluster of trees. He pulls out his cell phone to photograph the shot. As he's zooming in, he sees a body sitting against a tree with a peach-colored shirt wrapped over their head. Suddenly, another search group blows the whistle. They found the bodies. Back near the bridge, family friend John Weaver hears the whistle and asks a nearby police officer if he could get an update. The officer radios dispatch, asking if the girls had been found. After some confusion, the sound of a detective goes on the radio to request a crime scene unit and a medical examiner to the property owned by Ron Logan. Dispatch asks the officer to repeat the request, to which he affirms that he's requiring a crime scene unit. Lesenby requests all radios to go to 300, that is, encrypted channel. A few Atom radios continued to speak after law enforcement went to encrypted band. I'm assuming that they were fire EMT radios with the search crews. They reported on clothing found in the creek belonging to the girls, and on some cigarette butts found near the scene, placed into evidence. Word spread like crazy about the killings. It seemed like the whole world stood behind wanting justice for the families. And yet, we jump to today. What's new in this case? Has anything changed? And how the hell could all of this have happened? The answer is here, buried under 80,000 leads. It's about decisions and a little thing called consequence. In order for us to fully understand the path that this case has taken, we have to go back to the day the girls went missing, when a cataclysmic fuck-up sealed the fate of this investigation. When I first started looking into this case, I never thought I'd find what my team and I have. Things that created more questions than answers. Things that made me see that Carroll County, its officials, were playing good cop, bad cop with the citizens of their own county. And it's not just Carroll County with this problem. It seems to be a widespread disease that many Hoosier public officials have. Have they never heard the slogan, "You don't shit where you sleep"? Obviously not. In the state of Indiana, corruption in public office seems to be a greater pandemic than COVID-19. I know. You're probably saying to yourself, what the fuck's his point? But I assure you, it's a good point. So just bear with me while I explain some things using some hypotheticals. So let's say that you had this small town, right? And over the years, certain families in the town were powerful. They worked out a plan to conspire to work certain public offices so that any form of public accountability was gone. They could do whatever the hell they want. Now, they did this for 2 reasons. The first reason, to make a ton of dirty money. Money that they didn't have to claim. Money that went in their pockets after the fact. The second reason, to prevent others from finding out about it. And these guys earned huge amounts of benefits and cash, all taken from the public that they're sworn to serve and protect. And let's say these officials allowed organized crime into their community and turned a blind eye to drug and sex trafficking in their city. Now, a few of these officials, they began to dabble in business with these lowlifes and drug dealers. And let's say one of these dealers gets pinched by the DEA one day. And this dealer cooperates and gives the names of his suppliers. This, of course, results in mass arrests and puts a target on the snitch's back, right? And let's say the guys he put away get out of jail, and they retaliate by killing members of the snitch's family. You'd think that justice would be served in a case like this, wouldn't it? Only it isn't. Because the guy that retaliated can be linked to some of the officials if the feds try to work out a deal with him. So the officials, they work to derail the investigation and obstruct the case from the inside by blocking the release of any information. This, in my opinion, is what's going on in Delphi. This is why Alice sits in a cell quietly. This is exactly why Flora occurred. This is why homicide after homicide has occurred since August. Because the judge who would quietly make all of this go away had to step down. This is also why the case may never get solved. Now wait, in my previous video I said that the girls were murdered on the Mears property in a barn. So how the hell did they make it to where the county claims they were found? To answer this, I must try to prove that the girls were not there on Ron Logan's property on the evening of the first search of the Monon High Bridge. It's February 13th, 2017. Libby and Abby walk the length of the bridge. At about 70% of the way across, Libby turns to photograph the bridge and her friend. At this point, they are close to the southeast side when the photos are uploaded to Libby's Snapchat profile. Each photo is timestamped at 2:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The entire length of the Monon High Bridge is 853 feet. It takes approximately 10 minutes to walk the bridge if you know what you're doing. We see from the photo of Abby that the bridge guy is not yet visible behind her, in spite of what some have claimed. At about 2:15 p.m., the perp on the bridge sets out from the north side. The girls, messing around on the bridge, still had an additional 200 feet to go to get to the end, so either of them did not see the snake coming up behind them. At the point of the altercation, it was approximately 2:30 to 2:35 p.m. He orders them down the hill, potentially at gunpoint, according to information received. The girls would have complied to his orders. At 3:11 p.m., Derek German, Libby's dad, pulls up towards Wilson's Bridge and calls Libby's phone to tell them that he's almost there. This is what Bridge 121 looks like. At 3:14 p.m., Derek pulls into Mears' lot. The girls are not standing by, so Derek parks and dials Libby's phone again. She does not pick up. Derek exits his vehicle and walks up the path. Derek walks up the path entrance to the trail crossroads. He sees David McCain walking up the 501 trail. He asks David whether he saw the girls, and McCain says that he hasn't seen anyone but a couple down by the bridge. I admit, this interaction feels kind of strange. I'm going to be careful to not over-speculate on it, but I do have some questions. When did McCain arrive? Where was McCain when the bridge guy abducted the girls? Derek walks around at the trails and lingers at the trail intersection. At 3:30 p.m., he calls Becky Patty, his mother. He lets her know that Libby is not picking up her phone. At the time, his sister was with Becky, and both her and Becky begin calling Libby's phone. It rings, but just goes to voicemail. Depending on the charge itself, Libby's iPhone 6 was also left in her pocket on record. The influx of calls likely began to also drain the battery's life. Tara German, Derek's sister, arrives at Mears' lot. She sits with Derek in his vehicle, waiting for Becky. Close to 4 p.m., Becky and Cody arrive. The lot is full, so Becky parks on the grass nearby. At approximately 4:10 p.m., Mike Patty arrives. Kelsey arrives soon after, and the family goes into the woods to search the trails together. After an hour of straight calling, Libby's phone now goes straight to voicemail. They all begin to seriously worry that the girls might possibly be hurt. The family calls the police, and soon they're dispatched to the scene. Facebook is flooded with their images and begin to circulate throughout the community. Volunteers from the community show up at the trails to help fire, police, and EMTs locate the girls. As search crews show up at the Monon High Bridge, it makes me wonder, were the girls' bodies laying where they were inevitably found, or were they not? Remember my previous video when I said that the girls were murdered elsewhere, in a barn on Mears' property? Let me show you something. A drone was brought to the scene that had a FLIR thermal imaging camera fastened to the bottom of it. I reached out to this individual, and he kindly was able to answer some questions for me. Questions that I believe blow this case wide open. The FLIR thermal imaging camera is a very sensitive camera that registers heat differences using color grading, much like these photos. As you can see, when something is hot, it lights up. So in a dark, cold wooded area, with trees and bushes no longer carrying leaves, a warm body would 100% show if it was there, especially only 3 hours after going missing, wouldn't it? I made contact with the individual who flew the drone. He went to the sheriff's office at about 6 p.m. They drove to a high point on the trail, near one of the girls' homes. He went up high and flew over the trails, and he went up and down the whole of Deer Creek. He remembers the creek banks, and up and around them, he could see searchers and deer throughout the woods, but the girls' bodies did not show up on thermal. Now I know what you're saying. The bodies are outside, it's the middle of winter. Wouldn't they have cooled? The historical forecast shows it as being between 1 and 3 degrees Celsius on February 13, 2017. There's also little change the day after. Now I know some of you will claim, oh, it was cold outside, so the bodies would have cooled fast and not showed up because of the environmental changes. Newton's law of cooling states that the temperature of a body changes at a rate proportional to the difference in temperature between a body and its surroundings. This process is called algor mortis and is defined as the postmortem cooling of a human deceased body. After death, the body's circadian rhythm stops. Many biological functions begin to shut down to prepare the body for decomposition. This includes the hypothalamus, a homeostatic feature that maintains our body temperature while we're alive. And yes, I know that the girls were outside and that they were exposed to the elements, and surely, according to Newton's law, that would have had the bodies cooling a lot faster than normal. Still, the act of algor mortis would have taken much longer than only a few hours. One of our group members got me in touch with the doctor so that I could ask. He requested that I remove his identity from the video, so I've done so. But he essentially confirmed that the bodies, after up to 5 hours exposed to the elements, wouldn't have lost more than 8 degrees Celsius by this time. It's safe to say that the bodies left outside would still be sitting at around 26 to 28 degrees Celsius, or approximately 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Under these circumstances, the drone should have seen them. This time of death calculator shows the estimated temperature that a body would be under normal circumstances. If the bodies weren't there on February 13, 2017, then when did they get moved there? And by whom? Lots of things are not adding up. Did you know that Tobe Lesenby, after only 3 hours, was already attempting to shut down the search for the girls that night? Witnesses have stated that as early as 7:30, 8 o'clock p.m. on 2/13/17, the search was already being called off. There have been several reasons given. The first was Visibility. It was dark, and yes, the bridge would have been a treacherous place to search without a light. I'll give it that. The second was given by Tobe Lesenby himself, who tried to say that volunteers were tired and wanted to reconvene refreshed. It was a total shit show. I mean, Indianapolis had search dogs. So why from Illinois? Lesenby tries to make it seem that while the search was called off, that officers remained throughout the night. Not only is this not true, but this is an outright lie. The scene was not secured until the following day when the Indiana State Police and FBI began to assist them. Carrie Timmons, mother of Libby German, recently came out to say that she's unhappy with the investigation. That with the plethora of evidence that the suspect left, he should be apprehended by now. I mean, in my opinion, this guy gave everything to investigators aside from his name and address. And she's not the only one to feel this way. Hundreds of local Carroll County citizens have reached out to me about Carroll County's impotence for police work. How many unsolved homicides are too much? And how many children have to die before Eric Holcomb gives the murder state back to its citizens? The Delphi story is a tragedy. A story about greed, ego, and power. A story about biting the hand that feeds. This story doesn't end here. It's a story about several counties coming together in the midst of powerful tragedy. And this story has always been rigged by a few big names. They operate under the nose of the citizens they're sworn to protect. People die to keep their secrets from all walks of life. Their life is one where silence and indifference burn hot in the midst of our broken world. One where the curse lives on in the future of their children. One where the mentality of money and legacy moves dead bodies. Listen, feds, it's time to look into Gabriel Ellis and his purported accomplice, the driver of the vehicle of interest, who worked at Indiana Packer Corporation until March 2017. But you already knew that when you picked up his boots. It's time to stop letting these assholes mock you and the victims. And Lesenby, it's time to submit to a federal investigation, no matter who it's going to take down. What goes around comes around. Join me next time as I break down the crime scene.